but I don't know how to use it terribly well.
Because I use plot, the plot information. Matter of fact, I have a homeowner that's decided that 50 feet of my field is his, and he and I are gonna visit the plot under. I think
There's a disclaimer about the accuracy of the.
plot.
So we'll do that. I know that Jill recommended that we invite other agencies in, so I spoke to Kate earlier, and we'll see if probably next week before we get FPR in, just availability. But we will also reach out to ag, and then we've reached out to housing, I think, too. So, and there'll be other opportunities. I mean, she also suggested Fish and Wildlife, might be interested. So we can, the clerks, et cetera, et cetera.
Would we ever have like a lister or two in?
Yes, I've got actually on my list, there is a lister, I think, on the board who
Oh.
might be a good resource. Yeah. Okay. All righty. So then let's turn our attention to the budget. And just to remind everybody, by tomorrow, we've been asked to communicate with the House Appropriations Committee on anything that we'd like to have included in the budget that's either already in the governor's recommended version or is not. And I will just mention the things that are there right now, at least that I think are there, that we've heard about. The base funding includes $500,000 for the local purchasing incentive. That's funding that's available to give to schools who make purchases of local food. And that's been level funded. It's been in the base for a few years now. And then another $500,000 for the farm to school program. It's also in the governor's recommended budget, and that's also currently in the base. It has been in the base for several years. And $200,000 for the farm and fields program.
For the one five.
Fairs and fields, sorry. So for fairs, that's also money. It's been in the base of that amount for several years. So there are no changes there. The governor's budget also includes one-time money, $850,000 that we took testimony on last week to set up for CAFOs, to set up a database and for contractor support. And this is related to the EPA, the ongoing negotiations with the EPA over clean water. So that's what's in the budget that the governor recommended that relates to the work that we do. Oh, also $1 million for working lamps. And 36.9 million to Housing and Conservation Board is in the governor's recommend. We've heard requests from several organizations for budget related appropriations or for the budget that other committees are also dealing with. And we've been asked to further support what other committees are recommending. And one of those is for money that is going to the Land Access and Opportunity Board. The governor's budget does recommend funding for that. And there's also a request for taking funding from the cannabis revenue from the excise tax. That's also supported by the Cannabis Control Board. We're going to hear tomorrow, and this is sort of 11th hour, we're going to hear tomorrow from Serve, Learn, and Earn. The Serve, Learn, and Earn has a program that we've supported in the past. This is again a request that's going through another committee, the Commerce Committee. And we've been asked to, further support that.
What's that number, do you?
Um, got 2 million, but I'm not sure I'm not sure whether that's what was in the budget or if any of it's in the budget.
And how much was the LAOB?
That's 1.5.
That Ferris and Field Days was
200.
two.
Did you mention anything for the conservation districts?
We're getting to that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were done.
Yeah. So, no, actually, right, there is 500,000 that is in the
They
government.
wanted more.
Yes, yeah,
Everybody.
I know.
there's conservation districts, yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Michelle, for pointing out, because I wanted to start with ones that were funded, at least in part, in the governor's recommend. And then there are others that are not funded at all. And others that we've had requests to provide more funding for. And those are the ones that we've been hearing about, talking about for the last couple of weeks.
Sorry, just one more. The Vermont Food Bank, I think they had a bigger ask and they were in the budget, but I don't remember what the amount.
That's one that's not in the budget.
Oh, they're not in the budget.
So what we will need to do is, as I say, communicate with the Appropriations Committee what we support, and to the extent that we can give them an indication of where our support is strongest, that will be helpful. So what I thought we might want to do is go around the room. We don't have to go around the room. We can, people can hop on this if you want, but just get a sense of where the committee stands. And it might be a useful construct to imagine a world where we didn't have unlimited resources and had to make the decision between, this program and that program, the hard decisions that appropriations will ultimately be making, and they will take our input on it. But at the end of the day, they will be making hard decisions this year, and perhaps there'll be extra revenue that we don't know about today in the official forecast, and we can talk to that too. But imagine a world where we only had, say, $500,000, because that might be the world that we end up in, which is a pre-COVID world where $500,000 might have been an unusual thing to have even.
But the total ask or what?
But what's that?
The total ask.
I haven't even added them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so large.
More than a million.
Yeah. Anyway, so Heather, do you want to?
Start?
Yeah.
Sure. If I had to just pick one, but not necessarily working within the 500,000 framework, although I can, it would be the No for Crop Cash Plus program. And also, did we say if their original crop cash program was being funded?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I would advocate for both.
Crop cash and crop cash
Yes.
plus
Yeah.
and farm share. Are you including farm share?
Is that part of the NOPA request?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
And yes, I am advocating for all of that,
Okay.
is my number one.
And how much? Much as we could
Well,
get?
they requested for 500.
500, yeah.
3,500.
I think it's 500,000 was the request, yeah. And I may misstate something here, so please jump in if you think I've got the wrong number.
They may have split it out, right, by program too.
They may have, yeah.
These are in the category of not in the budget
Right, these would be, so these are
request.
requests that are not in the governor's recommended budget. And I'll just say that, I think I said this probably last week too, that all the committees are going through the same exercise where they've been asked to fund a program or something that isn't in the governor's recommended budget. And bearing in mind that that budget is built to a revenue target, we're also going to be coming to that same revenue target because we are all working from the same consensus forecast. So, John, did you want to go next?
I don't, there's nothing really specific that I put at the top of the list besides just the committee thinking in terms of sort of leverage dollars. So when you think of like the flood resilience recovery money, if we lose a bunch of farms, for example, that has certainly drastic effects on our economy. I think like the conservation districts, the money seems to be almost like double or triple because they're getting grants with that money. So it's sort of like for whatever dollar we're in for, we get 2 or 3. And same with like the Vermont Food Bank, same sort of resilience type thing where, I mean, especially the sort of emergency funding money, because those things tend to, if it happens, then the expenses, is tripled for us if we're not ready for those kind of emergencies.
Okay, good.
I guess I'm finding it a little hard to remember all the things that you said, what is and isn't in the governor's budget. So like farm to school, 500,000 is in the budget.
It is, yeah.
I guess I would say crop cash would be my first and above the other things that NOPA is asking for. If we have to prioritize, that would be the single piece that I would want to draw attention to. I do think that the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program through the food bank is also really important. Their ask, I think, was much bigger than that. But those two programs, like programs where we can help folks who have food vulnerabilities and help farmers at the same time, to me, that's win-win.
Richard.
Oh, sure. New kid here. Lot of great programs have come before us. And I'm sure they're all deserving. My big one is universal school meals. I don't know if that falls on this committee. That is a big one to me. And but if it and tell me if it falls on this committee or not, but if it doesn't, did I hear you mention something about small farm grants the other day, Heather?
Yeah, the small farmer diversification and transition grant. I was hoping that our committee would advocate for additional funding if available.
See, what I would do is I would put that with the working lands grant money and make it a $2 million ask. That way, if appropriations wanted to trim some off it, then we could say, there, we got this for the workers land grant, and we got that for the small farm. The rest of what you said, because it's fostering the growing of food, what we need to do first. All farming, before we can even sell it, we have to be able to do it. But every group that's come to us has had legitimate concerns and ask and answers.
It's like you're almost asking our favorites.
Well,
All favorites.
and ag innovation grants, which they've got a fund, and of course a lot of that's federal. So, well, it's supposed to be federal. We'll see if it survives Doge, but that'll be good. They're happy with what they got. But anyways,
So which category? Because I'm as court trying to.
so does the school meals, universal school meals fall under our preview? Is that one of our?
So
We, yes, and we can mention it in the letter. We've already done a separate letter to the House Appropriations Committee indicating our support for that. So I think we can mention that, and certainly will mention it since you brought it up. But beyond that,
Maybe the working lands grant with small farms in
Diversification and
diversity,
transition.
yeah.
So I ditto every, there hasn't been an advocate, at, whatever. Advocate.
Yeah.
It has been distasteful to me. No. So I'm just gonna be different and put a check by the working lands.
The three that I think, but number one, I guess, would be the working lands grant. Conservation district, yes, that's important. And I really like the idea of fairs getting their fair share because that's an important thing in the state.
yeah, okay. All right, good. And I will say if, in addition to what's in the base budget, so, and this is not something I should have assumed, but if we were feeling collectively as a committee that, yes, we want to see that money going to the fairs, and we do want to see the $500,000 going to farm to school, and yes, we want to see the 500,000 going to local purchasing incentive. That in addition to that, what would we support? And I agree with everybody that all of these are worthy programs, and we've heard compelling arguments for all of them. I think I would support the Vermonters, Feeding Vermonters portion of the food banks request. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to now say, let's imagine that turns out that we have more funding available for some reason. Is there something else that you just want to mention right now? I asked you to try to limit it to one thing. And let's just say there were more money, not putting a dollar figure on it, but more money. Is there a particular thing that you want to just be sure that we get sort of in the record? Maybe something that somebody else has already mentioned.
The Vermont Food Bank, Vermonters Feeding Vermonters, all those groups, I mean, all of it is doing the right things.
Going back clockwise from.
You want to be last or you want to be second?
I'll be second. I will also check by the Vermont Food Bank.
Yes, I would say the same, the food bank. And whatever that entails.
I'm going to say, just because I want to be sure that we get it out there, we haven't talked a lot about it, but there is the farm security special fund that has been, there's a Senate bill that Senate Ag Committee is working on. We have a version of it. Our version doesn't include an appropriation, and I'm not sure whether the Senate version does either, but there's a request for $20 million to seed this fund.
On the Senate side.
Well, that request came to us also, yeah.
Yeah.
And whether it's 20 million or some other figure, I think that's an important thing to also recognize.
It is,
Yes.
it is.
And along those lines, I mean, not really allowed to potentially hold money back, but if there were bills coming, for example, I mean, I'm struck this year by both the agencies we deal with, and Ag and FPR, that they're really under restrictions to either level fund or keep, even shrink where they're at. Whereas if we saw opportunity for, one or two positions at those agencies that would somehow be an economic development thing, Where do we find that money?
Right, yeah. Yes, that's, that's a good point because we don't spend a lot of time talking about staffing. And I think it's kind of inherent to just the process of the way we have done it. And maybe we need to step back and think about that, but we have heard at the same time that, please don't ask us to take on more work. If if we have said, it would be great if we could do this.
Right.
We need to recognize that resources are a little stretched already. And that if we were to say, we'd like you to do, for example, start enforcing timber trespass, somehow out of, some department, if that requires people that aren't currently budgeted for it.
Well, just to like for $850,000 to take on Capos.
Yeah.
I could think of a lot of places better for that. Because we had. It's a discussion for another time, maybe in a hallway.
Well,
I have no check marks for K.
yeah.
And along those lines, I mean, and I was thinking from our field trip, what would it take, for FPR to do more jobs like that? And put on, what is it? Is it a staff problem? I mean, just if we're just getting the 2014 jobs.
Yeah, well, some of that's climate and.
Yeah.
Some of it is staff and they're setting the bar higher. Not complaining, I'm stating the fact.
If we can keep, right, a
Yeah,
dozen loggers like Lathrop in business,
absolutely.
worth it.
Creating revenue.
You want to,
I have such a same sentiment as Richard, actually. And I think that, if we're looking at funding that already goes to water quality, it's over 6 million. And when I'm looking at that 850,000, I wouldn't mind that going to something like the small farm diversification grant instead, that is also working to transition farms out and put them into something that could be more sustainable and could have just as much impact on a larger amount of farms. And yeah.
Does anybody know though, is the EPA really holding our feet to the fire on that? Or is it just like, let's do a CAFO permitting thing?
Yeah, we really should have Ag and A&R sitting right here beside each other because they have a bill downstairs that is the two of them working together. That I hear favorable. It hasn't done anything downstairs yet, but they should have brought it up here. But anyway,
yeah, I think the answer, so we can certainly get somebody else to come in and answer your question, John, but I think that's the interpretation, that the EPA is holding our feet to the fire, and that one of the steps that needs to be taken involves setting this up.
Yeah.
So Heather, you made a choice, still,
I would say that my second one, I would love to see more funding go to the small farmer diversification and transition granting program. And
Is that
if
your first one?
No,
No.
Nova.
small farm
Yeah.
diversification.
Yeah,
Be a conflict of interest if there weren't other small farmers.
certainly so,
Right.
yes. Yeah, that would be it.
see what Sharon one cough drop did?
I know. You got any more of those?
Do you need one?
All the old efforts of bipartisanship.
John, did you weigh in for a second time, or? Did-
I mean, I think the committee sort of,
Yeah, okay.
we have a consensus here that,
On the
Just
small farm.
the one thing I would add that hasn't seemed to rise to the top in terms of if we had a tier two is that, I mean, kind of what John was talking about, where could we put money that would help in other places or workforce? And I think with the conservation districts, they were talking about how they spend so much of their time writing grants so that they can do all this different work that then directly helps farmers.
Yeah.
And so if we had a little extra, it feels like it might be useful to give them a, statewide, give them, or whatever, some kind of grant writing position, or just give them some funds that could help with those issues, because it would be magnified. It wouldn't just be the money, but they would be able to bring in more money and more programming through that investment.
Absolutely. They work. If I had my druthers, I'd fund them how they wanted to be funded, because the amount of work that they do and how they work with NRC, NRCS and FSA and EQIP, all those federal programs, and help farmers match those dollars up and find them sources is absolutely huge.
Can I ask for just a clarifying
Sure,
question?
yeah.
Did you say that the LAOB was in the governor's budget recommendation
Yeah, the funding is,
coming from the cannabis excise tax?
that I'm not sure about.
Okay, but the 1.5 million
Yeah,
itself was
yeah.
in there.
I believe so.
Okay.
Did they had a bigger figure, like 6 million or something, right?
Yeah.
And that was
Yes.
probably from the excise tax.
And I was
Maybe it
wondering
was,
if that's-
yes, right, the difference there, yeah. That may be the answer to that. Okay, all right, well, thank you, everybody. I know that you're right. Yeah, picking your favorite. So I will, tomorrow, we will have a letter for everyone to look at that tries to capture the committee's feelings here. I think that everything that has been brought to us has merit, and we want to convey that as well. So I'll do that. If anybody wants to, if anybody would like to contribute to supporting language on any particular program that you feel strongly about, to help bolster the case. This doesn't just have to be a letter from me. In the past, we have done that. I think last year we had committee members sort of working on part of that. It's been done different ways. It's also been written in other years entirely by Ledge Council. But I think we can probably not involve Ledge Council this time, just do it on our own. So feel free to, if you want to write something up, even just a few sentences that you think would be helpful, feel free to do that. Incorporate it and check with me first, just so that we're not duplicating efforts.
Can it be in Richard speak, or does it have to be in perfect?
Well, we have editors standing by.
As colorful as possible.
Richard Speak would get more attention.
Yeah.
You analogies thrown in there.
Lightly edited.
Yeah.
All right, anybody have anything else?
Want me to report these?
Sure, we can, yeah, afterwards we can.
Oh, I understand that then too.
Okay, good. Good. Tomorrow. At 9:30, as I alluded to a few minutes ago, Serve, Learn, and Earn is coming in for a 30-minute presentation. Introduction. I will say it would be difficult to keep their presentation to 30 minutes. We always have a challenge when we find something interesting, we have questions. I know that they have a lot of material there. So if we don't hear all of it, we'll get back to them, but and have them come in again, just so we can better understand what they do. But the purpose really is to give them an opportunity to make their case for the budget request. Then we're taking some testimony on H-134, the first of the current use bills. And then we're going to have Ledge Council come in, Alan Chakowski, and walk us through some of the changes that were made last year in the big Act 250 bill that affected housing, land use and housing. Which was also it. Then we have CSG, Council on State Governments, is coming in to present on their what they do, what that organization does. We'll have lunch. And then in the afternoon, we have FPR coming back to talk about the details of their budget. You know, they were in last week and we had to cut them off and we didn't get to the sort of line by line part of their budget. So we want to be sure that we have a chance to do that. Sort of goes to conversation we were just having about, you know, understanding staffing needs. And then we can talk a little bit more about the budget letter. And that should do it for tomorrow. Anyway, 9:30. And unless you get an urgent email from Sarah, which is possible. Yeah.
Send me one, I got more emojis to send back to Sidonia.
Water would be great today.
All right, good. See everybody tomorrow.